They hovered above Earth for 7 days before speaking. They didn't look like monsters. No claws, no fangs, just smooth silver bodies, no faces, no voices, until they decided to be heard. They called themselves the Ilari, said they'd been watching, said they made our DNA, said we were theirs, and then they told us to kneel. Some did. Hell, most did. Presidents, ministers, generals, they dropped to their knees on live broadcast, thinking it was the smart move. Better safe than extinct, one of them said with a smile that made me want to put my fist through the screen. But not all of us were wired like that. My name's Ryder Grant. I was born in a slum in the wreck of what used to be Detroit, fought my way out with bloodied knuckles, got into the academy, and ended up flying Black Ops missions off Earth before I was 25. That's how I ended up on the Vanguard, a gunmetal beast built in secret by the ones who didn't kneel. We were ghosts, forgotten files buried in classified bunkers, and when the Ilari came, we were still out there. So when the message came down, return to Earth, immediate deployment. You're not just a pilot anymore, you're humanity's middle finger. I strapped into the cockpit and didn't blink. They called themselves gods. They had tech we couldn't explain. Ships that made ours look like toys. They bent gravity, warped time, erased a city in Egypt just to prove they could. But I don't care how many dimensions you can fold. You bleed, you can die. And gods who bleed ain't gods. They're just scared tyrants with shiny toys. I'll never forget our first mission briefing. We were sitting in a sealed chamber, lights dim, air thick with the tension of men who'd all seen too much and didn't flinch anymore. Across from me sat Commander Briggs. One eye, missing 2 fingers. Looked like a corpse that forgot how to die. He leaned over the table and said, "They think we're animals. They think they can put a leash on Earth. So we're gonna shove that leash up their alien asses and remind them what real monsters look like." Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered. We just nodded. We knew what we signed up for. The Vanguard had one mission: hit the heart of their command ship in orbit, the one they called the Sanctum. It wasn't just a ship. It was a goddamn floating temple, 200 miles wide, covered in gold-veined armor, guarded by drones the size of office buildings. Suicide? Maybe. But I've stared down death before. This was different. This wasn't about saving lives. This was about sending a message. The launch was quiet. No parades, no last-minute speeches, just the rumble of engines under our feet, the lights of Earth disappearing beneath us, and the sound of breathing through comms as we passed the point of no return. At 27,000 miles per hour, Earth became a blur, and there it was, the Sanctum, suspended in low orbit like it owned space itself. It shimmered with energy fields that glowed like veins under a skin of metal. The closer we got, the more you could feel it in your chest, a pressure, like your lungs were being squeezed by something that didn't belong in this universe. "Stay tight," Briggs said over comms. "We don't run, we don't plead, we deliver hell." We powered weapons. I felt the ship hum like it was hungry. Then something strange happened. A voice, not over comms, not in our ears, in our heads. "You challenge the divine, you will be made ash." And just like that, one of our flanking vessels, Saber 2, was gone. No explosion, just gone, like someone erased it with a goddamn pencil. Panic hit the crew like a hammer. But not me. My knuckles were white on the throttle, and my jaw was tight. Because I remembered what my father once told me when I was a kid in that rotting tenement. "Son, there ain't no such thing as gods. Just bastards with power, and they all bleed eventually." We were about to prove it. The moment Saber 2 vanished, the Vanguard crew snapped into a silence thicker than steel. I glanced at Torres, my co-pilot, young, fast, too stubborn to die. His face was pale, jaw clenched. "They didn't fire," he whispered. "There was no weapon, no trace." "Doesn't matter," I said through gritted teeth. "They erased a ship. They won't erase us." Briggs's voice came through the channel, hard and unforgiving. "Formation tight. If they can pick us off without firing, we don't give them space to do it again." The rest of the fleet adjusted, drawing in closer. We were 5 ships now, down from 6. 5 hardened vessels with stolen alien shielding, handcrafted Earth core plasma railguns, and nothing left to lose. The sanctum was growing larger on the screen, its surface shimmering like a mirage. Its outer hull was carved with symbols no one had cracked. Our analysts said it pulsed like a living thing, as if the ship itself had a nervous system, and we were heading straight into its mouth. "Approaching perimeter," Torres said, and that's when the sky opened. I'm not talking about a portal or weapons fire. No, this was something worse. The space around us twisted, not visually, not physically, but mentally. I felt it in my bones before I saw it. Like the ship knew we were here, like it was watching. I gritted my teeth as voices echoed in my skull, voices that didn't belong to anyone, whispering things I didn't want to remember. My father begging for insulin as he died on a stained mattress. My first kill. The enemy soldier crying for his mother while I held the knife. A girl I left behind when I chose war over love. Her last message unopened on my pad. The sanctum knew how to cut deep. Torres screamed and clutched his head. "Make it stop. They're in my fucking brain." I slapped him hard. "Look at me! Look at me!" His eyes snapped to mine, wide and wet. "What the hell is this?" "They're inside us. It's not tech. They're using us against ourselves." Briggs came on. "Purge protocols. Engage pulse jammers." We activated the neurojammers, illegal tech ripped from failed alien research. It sent a surge through the cockpit, like biting down on a live wire. But it cleared the fog, cut off the voices, just in time. Because the sky around the sanctum was no longer empty, hundreds of silver shapes emerged. Drones. Not the kind we knew, not weak scouts or recon bots. These things moved like liquid metal, reshaping mid-flight, faster than anything we'd seen. "Lock targets!" I shouted, slamming controls. The first railgun blast tore through space like thunder. 1 drone vaporized, 3 more took its place. Then all hell broke loose. The Vanguard dove hard right, the G-force pressing us into our seats. Railguns fired from the wings, burning blue streaks across space. Explosions flared around us, drones splitting apart like glass and reforming mid-flight. We were outnumbered 100 to 1, and the bastards weren't just smart. They were angry. "Briggs, we need a new vector," I barked. "We cut through the swarm," he growled. "They don't expect us to go straight for the eye." It was insane. But insanity was the plan. The eye was what we called the central dome on the sanctum, pulsing with red energy, like a heart on fire. We believed it was the core. We had 1 shot to reach it, and even that was guesswork. I banked the ship hard, turbines roaring, dodging 2 drones by inches. Torres regained his grip, locking another volley. 3 drones shattered in our wake. 1 clipped our tail. Systems blinked. Alarms screamed. "Damage to thruster 6, Torres shouted. "Stabilizer offline." "Doesn't matter," I said, voice flat. "We ride the fire." I pushed the throttle. The Vanguard surged forward, burning fuel we couldn't spare. Around us, ships were falling. Crimson Spear took a hit straight to the hull, erupted into blue flames. Ghostline lost its wing and spun into darkness. Only 3 of us left now. Me, Briggs, and Seraph Black, piloted by Commander Harlan, a cold, methodical bastard who didn't flinch even when the world burned. "Vector locked," Briggs called. Brace for breach. And then we hit it. The sanctum's outer shell. It didn't feel like metal. The moment we touched it, every screen went black. No systems, no sound, just darkness. Then the walls of the cockpit shimmered. And we weren't in the ship anymore. We were somewhere else. Torres and I stood in a field of ash. Above us, the sky bled red. A ruined earth lay around us. Burning cities, blackened oceans, children crying into empty hands. I knew it wasn't real. But it felt real. And standing across from me was me. Or something that looked like me. Same eyes, same scars, but colder. Smiling. "This is what you bring," it asked. "Anger, violence, fire, and you call us monsters." "You call yourselves gods," I hissed, "but gods don't need fear to rule." "You fear what you don't understand," it said. "We gave you life, and you used it to burn your own planet." It raised a hand, and behind it I saw every war I'd ever fought. Cities I bombed, friends I lost, innocents caught in the crossfire. You are chaos, you are rot, we are order. "Then why hide in our minds?" I said. "Why fake illusions if you're so powerful?" The copy of me tilted its head. "Because the only way to kill an animal is to show it what it really is." I reached for my sidearm. It wasn't there. "Your weapons mean nothing here." I stared at him. "Good thing I brought something better." And I clenched my fist. Suddenly, the pulse jammer in my suit activated, a backup trigger hidden in my glove. The illusion shattered like glass. I was back in the cockpit. So was Torres, gasping for air, sweat pouring down his face. "Pulse broke the link," I said. "Manual control, now!" Systems rebooted. We were inside the hull now, flying through what looked like a golden tunnel, veins of light pulsing around us like we were inside a living artery. "Where the hell are we?" Torres asked. "Their brain," I said. "We're in the sanctum's nervous system." Briggs's voice came in, faint and static-filled. "Core is near. Visual confirmed. Repeat. Visual confirmed." We pushed forward. The core. It was beautiful and terrifying, and in front of it stood something. Not a drone, not an Alari. Something older, wrapped in gold armor, standing twice my height, with no face, just a blank, smooth helm. It raised its hand, and I felt the ship's controls freeze again. "You should have bowed," it said into our minds. "And you should have stayed legends," I replied. Then the sky lit up. Seraph Black fired its full payload, everything it had. The Guardian raised its arms to block, and the explosion rocked the chamber. The Vanguard surged forward. This was it. One shot. No second tries. I locked the railgun on the core. The figure recovered. Its armor scorched, but not broken. It pointed a hand at us, and I felt my chest collapse with pressure. I screamed as Torres gasped beside me, blood pouring from his nose. And then Briggs's ship hit the Guardian full speed. No hesitation. Direct impact. Briggs took himself and the enemy out in a single, fire-soaked burst that tore the chamber open. Silence. The core flickered. Flickered again. I lined up the shot, my hands shaking. "You call yourselves gods," I whispered. Then I pulled the trigger. The railgun blast hit the core. It didn't explode. It screamed, not through speakers, not through metal, but in our heads. Every human alive heard it. A scream so raw and ancient it felt like it came from the birth of the universe. And then, the core cracked, light poured out, and the sanctum began to fall. The tunnel collapsed behind us. Drones spun out of control, systems shut down. The entire floating temple began to implode in slow motion. We rode the debris out, engines howling, alarms flashing red. Torres was laughing like a madman. I was bleeding from my ears, but I didn't care. We'd done it. They weren't gods. They bled. They screamed. And they fell. They say silence in space is peaceful. They've never heard a god die. As the sanctum imploded behind us, I felt something I didn't expect. Emptiness. Like we'd just cut something ancient out of the sky, and the stars themselves went quiet to mourn it. Not because it deserved it, but because something that old dying always leaves a scar. The Vanguard barely made it through the collapsing debris. The engines were fried. Hull integrity was at 40%, life support down to backup levels. Torres had passed out from blood loss and shock, and I had a hairline fracture in my right femur. I couldn't even feel it at first. Adrenaline's a hell of a drug. But once we hit Earth's atmosphere, it came like fire up my spine. We crash-landed in the Mojave Desert 2 hours before dawn. The sand caught the ship better than expected. We dug a 20-meter trench into the earth and came to a stop just shy of an abandoned communications tower. Everything inside was smoke, blood, and sparking wires. I crawled out of the hatch, dragging Torres with me, the wind whipping dust into my eyes, lungs aching, head spinning. No one came for hours. When they finally did, it wasn't rescue teams or cheering crowds. It was military-grade drones and black vans. United Nations Security Corps. They didn't speak when they surrounded us, just aimed their rifles and scanned our bodies like we were lab rats. One of them, helmeted, voice modulated, leaned in and whispered, "You shouldn't have succeeded." That's when I knew. This wasn't victory. It was containment. They didn't expect us to come back. Hell, maybe they didn't even want us to. Destroying the sanctum meant destabilizing whatever deal they'd made. Maybe someone on the inside had been talking to the Alari. Maybe the gods gave them just enough power to feel important. And now they were scared. The man in charge, General Cullen, a name I knew but never respected, met me in a clean, white interrogation room 2 days later. I was sedated, patched up, and under heavy guard. No visitors, no communications, no answers. He walked in like he owned the building. Square jaw, polished shoes, ribbons he never earned on his chest. "Pilot Ryder Grant," he said, "sole surviving operator of the Vanguard Initiative." I didn't answer. He slid a tablet across the table. On it was a looping feed. The sanctum collapsing. Earth cameras had caught it from orbit. It looked like a second sun dying in slow motion. Millions had seen it by now. Billions, maybe. "You're a hero," he said flatly. I almost laughed. "Doesn't feel like it." "Because heroes don't get paraded anymore," he said. "They get hidden, managed. You did something no one believed possible. You killed a god, and that scares people." I leaned forward. "I didn't do it for people. I did it because someone needed to." He nodded slowly. "And now there's fallout. The Alari weren't the only ones watching. They weren't the apex." That got my attention. "There's more?" I asked. Cullen's expression didn't change. "The universe is large, pilot. The Alari were colonizers, yes, but they were also part of a larger federation, an empire, one that doesn't like losing territory." "So we're next?" "No," he said, "you are." I stared at him. "They've marked you," Cullen continued. "Your name, your DNA, your ship's signature. When they come, they'll come for the one who dared strike the eye." I didn't respond right away. "You want to lock me up," I said finally. "Keep me underground like some cursed relic." "Containment is survival," Cullen replied. "You've made Earth a target. The public doesn't know it yet. But they will. And when they panic, we'll need a scapegoat." I leaned back, letting the weight of his words hit. They weren't going to thank me. They were going to bury me. "Where's Torres?" I asked. "Alive," Cullen said. "For now. Being treated. He'll be released to his family once the debrief is complete." That was a lie. I could hear it in his tone. Nobody leaves the cage once they've seen the gears behind the gods. "You're going to kill him, aren't you?" Cullen didn't blink. Some debts are quieter paid in silence. I stood slowly, the guards behind me tensing. "You can cage me, General," I said. "You can spin your stories and erase my name. But if they come again, if your sky tears open and monsters pour out, you better pray I'm still breathing." He didn't respond. They took me to a facility in Greenland. Underground, no sunlight, no clocks, just recycled air and endless white rooms. No names, just numbers. I was Subject 17. They ran tests, psychological scans, memory probes. Sometimes they just stared at me through glass and whispered into mics like I was an exhibit. But none of them knew what I felt. Because in that final moment before the sanctum died, I saw something the others didn't. A signal, buried deep in the core. Not a weapon, not a warning, a message. And it wasn't for Earth, it was for their gods, their real gods. The ones that made the Alari kneel. That signal pulsed once, encoded in frequencies I couldn't understand, but my gut knew what it meant. "We've been attacked." The universe heard it, and they're coming. Not for Earth, not for humanity. For me. It's been 7 months since the crash. I haven't seen sunlight. Haven't spoken to another human face to face without glass between us. But last night the lights flickered in my cell, and the walls whispered. Not in English, not in sound, in thought. It was her voice. The girl I left behind. The one I never replied to. Except it wasn't her. It was them. Pretending. Testing me. Reminding me they hadn't forgotten. I woke up with blood on my sheets. Symbols etched in my skin like someone carved them while I slept. I wasn't afraid. I was awake. Because I know what's coming. They'll try again. New shape, new name. Maybe they won't call themselves gods this time. But I'll remember what they are. And I'll be waiting. I learned something in Greenland. Hope is a drug. Real quiet. Real dangerous. You don't notice you're hooked until it's gone. And when it's gone, you rot from the inside. 7 months underground in a place that pretended to be a medical facility but stank of prison. No clocks, no calendar, no sun, just fluorescent lights that never went out, and guards who never made eye contact. They stopped calling me Ryder after the 3rd week, stopped acknowledging I had a name at all. I was Subject 17, the pilot who killed a god. I didn't talk much. They didn't ask. Mostly it was tests, reflex scans, memory drags, pain thresholds. The worst wasn't the physical torture. It was the visits. People in clean coats and blank faces would come in, sit across from me, and show me files. Pictures of Earth from orbit, images of satellites catching strange movements, interference in deep space, shifts in solar patterns, objects approaching, too far to confirm, patterns in deep static that looked like language. They wanted to know what I saw inside the sanctum, what that last moment meant. I told them the truth. A signal. Something woke up when I pulled that trigger. Something older than the Alari. Something that didn't forget. They didn't like that answer. The lead researcher, a tall man with surgical eyes and a voice like cold metal, said I was paranoid. Said isolation makes the mind invent enemies. Maybe he was right, or maybe he didn't want to believe the next monster already had our scent. Then one day, everything changed. It started with a tremor. Subtle at first. The kind of shake you'd mistake for a misfiring generator. Then came the lights, flickering like candle flames in a storm. The guards looked confused. That was rare. Usually they moved like machines, routine, detached. But now they had their hands on weapons, eyes wide, nervous. I heard screaming down the hall. Not human. Not anything I've ever heard. I stood in my cell, staring at the locked door, wondering if this was how it ended. Buried underground while the real war started up above. Then I heard a voice. Not through the speakers. Not in my ears. In my mind. Hello again, Ryder. I froze. It was her voice again. The one from the dreams. The one that sounded like the girl I once loved but never saved. You woke us, the voice said. And now they've come to silence you. The lights went out. Red emergency backup kicked in. The door to my cell slid open with a low hiss. I didn't wait. I ran. No alarms. No guards shouting. Just chaos. The hallway was lit like a horror show. Red lights flickering over blood-slick floors, broken panels, and a body crushed into a wall like it had been thrown by something inhuman. I moved fast, took a pistol from the body of a fallen security officer. Standard issue. Short range, semi-auto, low capacity, but better than nothing. I reached the elevator shaft. It was wrecked, doors mangled, cables frayed, so I climbed. Hand over hand, gritting through pain, ignoring the roar of something below me. Something moving through the tunnels like it belonged there. Halfway up, I looked down. I shouldn't have. What I saw, it didn't walk. It slithered. A shape that didn't belong in 3 dimensions, eyes that blinked sideways, a body that rippled like water, but made of metal and flesh at once. It didn't see me. Not yet. I kept climbing. By the time I reached the top hatch, my hands were shaking, muscles burning. I pried it open with my back screaming and pulled myself into a service corridor lined with steam pipes and old wiring. The place was crumbling, and something was killing it from the inside. I found a dead technician slumped against the wall, badge still clipped to her chest. I took it, swiped it on the nearest door panel. It opened. Behind it, an armory. Bingo. 2 rifles, 1 tactical vest, 3 mags, a thermal knife, and a personal comms unit. I geared up fast, adrenaline cutting the pain to the bone. The comms crackled the second I activated it. Static, screaming. A faint voice. Repeat, facility breach, unknown entities, code black, containment failure. Then silence. I kept moving, floor by floor. The higher I went, the louder the noise became. I finally reached the surface exit, sealed, reinforced steel, keypad entry. I didn't have the code, but the wall beside it had a vent large enough to wedge the thermal knife inside. I jammed it in, waited. Heat built up. Metal glowed. Then with a shriek of tearing bolts, the door blew open, and I stepped into the world again. It wasn't the world I left. The air smelled like ash. The sky was darker than it should have been, clouds thick with something that shimmered wrong. I stood on the edge of the facility's exterior, an icy wasteland stretching for miles. But I wasn't alone. 2 transport ships were grounded nearby, black military birds with the UN symbol scratched off. Their engines were cold, hulls dented, bodies littered the snow, not shot, not stabbed, melted, like something had peeled them from the inside. I didn't wait around to investigate. I took the closest ship and prayed the fuel reserves were untouched. They were. As the engine roared to life, I looked back at the bunker one last time. It was collapsing. Something beneath the ice was moving, breaking up the earth like a buried serpent shaking off sleep. I lifted off, fire in the thrusters, and punched a vector south. I didn't have a destination. I just needed to vanish. Disappear before the world found out I was alive. Because if they did, they'd send more than guards this time. They'd send me back. And this time, maybe I wouldn't make it out. 2 weeks later, I touched down in the wreckage of a forgotten city, one of the ghost zones on the edge of former civilization. Somewhere in South America. Could have been Chile. Could have been Peru. Maps didn't matter anymore, not when satellites were falling and the stars were screaming. I made a camp in the ruins of a church. Figured if the gods were watching, they'd appreciate the irony. The nights were long, cold, filled with whispers. Every now and then, I'd hear it again. The voice, the girl I left behind. Always in my head. Soon, she'd whisper. I didn't know what she meant, until I met him. I was scouting the old metro tunnels for supplies when I found him, half dead, wrapped in rags, holding a weapon far too advanced for anything humans had built. He looked up at me with hollow eyes, not afraid, not surprised. You're the one who broke the sky, he said. I didn't answer. I saw the flash. I was in orbit when it cracked. You killed their shrine, their listening post. What are you? I asked. He coughed. Blood hit the floor. I used to be human. Then they took me, changed me, sent me back. Back? He nodded. To see what kind of god could die. To see if you were worth fearing. And? I asked. He smiled. They're scared. I lowered my rifle. Of me? Number of what you woke up. I helped him up, took him back to the church, bandaged his wounds. We didn't speak much, didn't need to. He told me his name was Brenner, former Navy, taken during a recon mission 3 years before the Alari revealed themselves. They'd kept him in a cryo prison. Studied him, modified him. He wasn't the first, wouldn't be the last. They're coming, he said one night as the stars blinked out one by one. But it won't be fire and ships this time. It'll be whispers, dreams, thoughts you didn't think were yours. I believed him, because I was already dreaming things I couldn't explain. Old symbols, a tower of light, a child made of metal and bone, and a name whispered over and over, Veltar. I don't know what it means, but it feels like a countdown, and I can feel it ticking. The nights blurred into each other. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw stars bleeding into spirals. I heard the screaming of something too large to see, but too close to ignore. I'd wake with blood in my nose, soaked in sweat, Brenner's voice echoing in the dark corner of the church ruins, where he kept watch like a war ghost that forgot how to die. We both knew the countdown had started. The dreams were getting stronger. And I wasn't the only one having them. There were others. Wanderers, scavengers, ex-military, old mercs who hadn't picked up a rifle in years, drifting into the dead cities. Most of them came for shelter, food, safety. But some came because they heard something, felt something. They called it the pulse. It was like a low hum in their chest, growing stronger every day. It led them through deserts, forests, ruins, like a beacon made of soundless gravity. They didn't know what it was, but it pulled them like a rope tied around their ribs. Brenner said the pulse was programming, residual influence, a slow override written into the minds of anyone who had ever touched alien tech, been near Alari broadcasts, or witnessed the Sanctum's collapse. That meant half the world was compromised, and most didn't even know it. They don't need to invade anymore, Brenner told me one night, staring into the fire. They're already here, in the minds, in the dreams, they're rebuilding from inside. I didn't want to believe him, until I saw it with my own eyes. We were scavenging the wreckage of an old science lab about 20 clicks south of the church ruins. It had belonged to a private Black Ops contractor before the collapse, one of those shell companies the UN used to deny involvement in dirty things. The place was abandoned, or so we thought. As we broke into the lower levels, we found something worse than corpses. We found pods, tall glass containment units, 13 of them, 9 still full. Inside, floating in a clear suspension fluid, were people, human-looking, but their eyes were black, skin too smooth, veins glowing faintly blue. Not asleep, not quite alive either. Somewhere in between. One of them opened its eyes when I leaned close. It smiled. Not at me, through me. Brenner yanked me back before I could put a bullet through the glass. "Don't," he said. "That's what they want." "What the hell is this?" "Infiltration stock," he whispered. "Preloaded shells, human skins, half-grown, half-programmed. When the time comes, they'll wake up and walk among us like they belong." "Why store them here?" He looked at the walls. "Because this place was never abandoned. It was repurposed." I scanned the lab's network using an old analog scanner. No trace of public feeds. But a private signal was pulsing beneath the concrete, encoded, masked, and traced directly to a satellite system that hadn't been active since the sanctum fell. It was broadcasting one message over and over. "Veltar awakens. Earth will kneel." I smashed the terminal. We rigged the lab with charges, set the place to burn. As the fire climbed into the sky, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us from the smoke. Not from outside, from inside me. I hadn't told Brenner about the newest dream. It wasn't just a voice this time, it was a vision. A city, not built by hands, but grown from metal. Spires that pulsed like arteries, streets that breathed, and above it, a tower taller than the sky. At its top, a throne, and on it, a silhouette. Not Illyri, not human, something older, and it knew my name. Back in the ruins, things got worse. Some of the wanderers who'd followed the pulse started acting strange, not violent, not yet. But empty, like they weren't all there anymore. They'd sit for hours, staring at nothing, whispering symbols, carving spirals into walls, into their skin. One of them, a girl no older than 20, walked into the fire pit one night while everyone slept. Didn't scream, didn't even flinch. She just smiled as her skin cracked, her blood glowing the same pale blue I saw in the pods. That's when I knew. The invasion had already started, and Earth's leaders were letting it happen. I needed answers, real ones. Brenner had a contact, someone buried deep in the intelligence corpse heap. Name was Colton Stroud. Ex-CIA, black file, last known location, Panama. We packed light, took a barely functioning hover rig, and began the ride south. The roads were graveyards, burned-out trucks, craters, bodies left to rot in the open sun. No government patrols, no drones, just the occasional sign with a message that summed up everything. They left. You're on your own. When we finally reached Panama City, it was worse than we thought. The skyline was gone. Most of the infrastructure had been turned into husks. But the strangest thing? No bodies. It was like people had just walked away. No signs of struggle, no weapons fired, no blood, just emptiness. Brenner wasn't surprised. "Harvest zone," he muttered. "They took everyone who'd been fully converted, left the rest to rot." "How do you know?" I asked. He rolled up his sleeve. On his shoulder was a brand, faint, almost invisible, but shaped like the same spiral I'd seen in the dreams. "I got marked during my time in cryo," he said. "They planned to rewire me, but something went wrong." "What?" He looked at me for a long second. "You." That night, we found Colton, or what was left of him. He wasn't in hiding. He was running a black market broadcasting station beneath the bones of an old cathedral. He looked like hell, beard overgrown, eyes sunken, a pistol always within reach. But his mind was sharp, and his story sharper. He'd been part of the debrief team that watched the Vanguard's mission in real time. He saw the core collapse, heard the scream that rang out across every satellite channel for 0.004 seconds, and he'd been obsessed ever since. "They didn't want a war," Colton said, his hands shaking as he poured us whiskey from a rusted bottle. "They wanted obedience. Alari were just the shepherds. We were the cattle. But now?" He looked at me like I was a ticking bomb. "You broke the contract. You changed the equation, and they're rewriting reality to match it." Brenner stepped forward. "What's Veltar?" Colton paled. "I don't know, not fully, but I've heard the name before. Buried in pre-collapse broadcasts, hidden in signal backwash from deep space. It's not a thing, it's a process, a trigger." "Trigger for what?" Colton poured another drink and downed it. "Awakening." We stayed with Colton 3 nights. The dreams got worse. I started seeing the tower again, but this time I was inside it, walking up endless steps carved from bone and iron. Each step echoed with screams, and at the top I saw a child. Not human, not alien, something in between. It held a sphere in its hands, pulsating with the same symbols that kept appearing in my skin after each dream. I asked it who it was. It looked at me and said, "You gave me a name. Now give me a world." I woke up covered in blood, symbols burned into the wall. Brenner didn't say a word, but he knew. So did Colton. "The next phase has started," Colton said, "and they want you to lead it." I shook my head. "I killed their temple. I'm not their chosen one." "Exactly," he said. "You're the one who proved gods can die. That makes you more dangerous than a prophet. It makes you a symbol. They'll either make you their weapon or their warning," Brenner finished. I didn't sleep the next night. When dawn came, we packed our gear. Colton stayed behind, said he had broadcasts to finish. Said someone had to tell the truth. As we left, he handed me a drive. "Everything I have," he said. "Coordinates, names, frequencies, but one in particular." He looked me dead in the eyes. "There's still one Vanguard pilot unaccounted for." My blood went cold. "Who?" He said a name I hadn't heard since before launch. A name I thought had died in orbit. Kira Dorn. And just like that, the mission changed again. The gods were dead. But one of ours might still be alive. And if she was, she knew something they didn't want found. We moved fast. No time for rest. No time for second guesses. The data on Colton's drive was old. Some of it corrupted, half of it buried behind dead firewalls, but one set of coordinates pulsed red, tagged with 3 words: Dorn, alive, contained. The location? A fractured research colony just outside what used to be Bogota, now renamed Zone Black R11, one of the no-go sectors the UN sealed off right after the Sanctum fell. Officially, it was a quarantine zone. Unofficially, nobody came out of R11. Ever. It took us 5 days to get there, running dark through broken terrain, moving only at night. We passed villages that looked empty from a distance, but whispered when you got too close. Places where the people smiled too wide, blinked too slow, and moved like they'd forgotten how muscles worked. Brenner called them hollowed. "Pulse took over completely," he said. "There's no human left in there, just programming." We didn't stop for them, didn't speak to them, didn't even look back when they watched us from the trees. R11 was a scar on the earth, black towers half buried in ash. The air was thick, not with smoke or dust, but with pressure, like walking into a room where something had just died and hadn't been found yet. Colton's coordinates led us to a cracked access tunnel hidden behind a collapsed security wall. The old biometric lock was fried, but Brenner hardwired a bypass. As we stepped inside, the lights blinked once, then stayed off. The facility smelled of blood and ozone, The kind of place that hadn't seen sunlight in years, if ever. We followed the pulse signal deeper, level by level. Each corridor was worse than the last. Scorch marks on the walls, claw marks on metal, doors welded shut from the outside, and behind some of them, soft tapping. Brenner didn't flinch. I did. At the bottom, past 4 dead security checkpoints, we found the containment unit. Kira Dorn was still alive. But not the same. Her cell was round, reinforced with alloy even I didn't recognize. Transparent wall. No restraints, no visible systems. Just her, sitting cross-legged in the middle of the room, eyes closed, hair longer than I remembered, skin pale as frost. But she looked at me the moment I entered. Not startled, not angry, just calm. "Ryder," she said, "I was waiting for you." The air shifted. Brenner raised his weapon. "Easy," I said. "She was one of us." "No," Kira said softly. "I'm something else now." She stood, and that's when I saw the marks, carved into her arms, her back, her neck, not scars, symbols, the same ones that had started appearing on me. "You got out," I whispered. "The sanctum collapsed. We thought everyone died but me." "I didn't get out," she replied. "I was taken, held, altered, taught." "Taught what?" Her eyes darkened. "What's coming?" Brenner stepped forward. "Are you still human?" Kira looked at him, and for a split second something shimmered in her gaze. "No," she said. "But neither are you." He didn't argue. I stepped closer to the glass. "Why did they keep you alive?" "Because I listened," she said. "Because I didn't resist. I understood what they were doing." "And what's that?" She smiled, soft, sad. "They're not invading, not the way we think. They're correcting." "Correcting what?" She walked to the glass and put her hand against it. "You broke the chain, Ryder. When you killed the Sanctum's core, you didn't just stop a god. You cut off a signal. The pulse wasn't controlling us. It was stabilizing us. Without it, humanity is collapsing." I took a step back. "Number, that's not true. We were slaves. Cattle." "Not slaves," she said. "Children, untamed, dangerous. They kept us from destroying ourselves, until you set us free." Brenner growled. "This is pulse brainwashing. Classic conditioning. She's compromised." Kira ignored him. She looked at me. "Tell me, Ryder, since the Sanctum fell, how many people have you seen getting better? Building again? Healing? Or are they all breaking?" I didn't answer, because she wasn't wrong. The collapse hadn't just killed the Alari, it had fractured reality. Nations failed, systems unraveled, people broke, some turned hollowed, some vanished, some never woke up again. The world didn't heal, it sickened. She whispered, "They didn't come to conquer. They came to protect us from ourselves." I slammed my hand against the glass. "Then why the experiments, the pods, the infiltration?" "Because they knew we'd reject the truth, so they prepared for war." Her eyes locked onto mine. "But you can still stop it." My voice dropped. "How?" "Reignite the core." My heart stopped. "What?" She nodded. "There's another site. Not in orbit. Not Ilari. Deeper, older. Buried in Antarctica. The original pulse engine. The true Sanctum." Brenner stepped in. "That's suicide. That site's been sealed since the dawn of the first EM anomalies. Every Black Ops team sent there vanished. You expect us to just walk in and flip the switch?" Kira pressed her palm against the glass again. "You don't have a choice. If Veltar awakens before the core stabilizes Earth's frequency, it won't be a war." Her voice dropped into a whisper. "It'll be extinction." I stared at her. I didn't want to believe her, but something in me already knew it was true. I turned to Brenner. He looked hollow, but he nodded. "We go." Kira smiled, Then her chamber hissed open. I stepped back, weapon half raised. She stepped out, barefoot, hands raised. "I'm not your enemy, Ryder. I don't know what you are." "I'm what you'll become," she said, "if you survive long enough." And with that, she walked past us. No chains, no resistance, just quiet confidence, like she'd already seen how this ended. We left 11 Rand behind in smoke. The ride south would take weeks, maybe longer, if we made it at all. But the pulse was growing louder. Even Brenner started hearing it again. I didn't sleep that night, because the dream had changed again. The tower was gone. Now I stood before a gate, black, endless, pulsing with the same rhythm as my heartbeat, and something behind it was knocking, not gently, not to enter, but to shatter its way through. And I finally heard the word. Not a whisper, not a suggestion, a command. Bend or burn. The cold hit like a wall of knives. Antarctica wasn't just dead, it was ancient, a place untouched by war, politics, or the illusion of civilization. This was Earth's final memory, buried beneath kilometers of frozen silence. No gods ruled here, no armies marched, only the waiting. We landed near the edge of what used to be a joint science station called Outpost Aegis, abandoned years before the Ilari ever showed up. Official reports blamed a geothermal collapse, but Kira said that was the cover. The truth? This was the first contact site, and the original core was somewhere beneath it. We left the ship half-powered and buried it in the snowdrifts. Couldn't risk any signals. Couldn't risk anyone, or anything, knowing we were here. The sky overhead was pitch black, not from nightfall, but from a spiral-shaped storm hovering miles above the outpost. Brenner looked up once, then didn't again. "That's not weather," he muttered. Kira didn't respond. She was already ahead of us, moving like the ice didn't touch her, like she belonged to the storm now. The outpost was exactly what I expected. Frozen corpses, shattered equipment, everything left behind in mid-movement. Chairs knocked over, coffee still frozen in mugs, keypads blinking with old, dying power. But no signs of damage, no blood. They hadn't died fighting. They'd just stopped, like something shut them off. We moved through the main complex in silence, our breath turning to frost clouds. I had my weapon raised the whole time, finger just off the trigger. Brenner moved slow. He'd been getting worse. The closer we got to the core, the more the pulse twisted inside him. He gritted his teeth against it, sweat freezing on his neck, fingers trembling on his rifle. "We shouldn't be here," he muttered. "Why?" I asked. "Because this place isn't abandoned," he said. "It's preserved." Kira found the elevator shaft sealed behind layers of ice. She placed her palm on the console, and, without pressing anything, the systems groaned to life. She didn't explain how, didn't have to. We descended for 20 minutes in silence. Then the light changed. At the bottom of the shaft, the glow wasn't white anymore. It was red. The hallway ahead pulsed like a heartbeat. The walls were smooth. Not concrete, not steel, something else, a metal that rippled under the surface. Alive. Brenner collapsed halfway down. I caught him before he hit the floor. His eyes rolled, voice barely audible. "It's in my head, Ryder. It's screaming too loud." Kira crouched beside him, placed a hand on his chest. He seized once, hard, then stilled. When his eyes opened again, they were black. Not possessed, not hollowed, awake. He stood, taller somehow, straight. "What the hell did you do?" I asked. "I helped him remember," Kira said. "Remember what?" "That he's not yours anymore." I raised my rifle. He didn't flinch. "Lower it, Ryder," Brenner said, calm, steady. "You're not ready for this war if you're still aiming at the people trying to win it. You're compromised." "No," he said. "I'm aligned." Kira stepped between us. "This is what you don't understand," she said. "The core isn't a weapon. It's a choice. Humanity was never meant to evolve alone. Left unchecked, you destroy yourselves. The Alari were just guides. And when you killed them, the true architects woke up." "Veltar," I said. Kira nodded. "It's not a god. It's a system, a correction, a living intelligence older than galaxies. And you're the error in the code." I backed away. Everything in me screamed to run, but my legs didn't move, because the truth was, I'd known this since the sanctum collapsed. I'd felt it inside me, like a second heartbeat. The red hallway opened into a chamber the size of a cathedral, and there it was, the original core. Floating in the air like a suspended sun, veins of fire rippling out from its center, reaching into walls, ground, space itself. It wasn't mechanical, it was organic, and it knew we were there. The moment I stepped forward, it pulsed, and I heard it. A voice that wasn't sound, that wasn't even thought, it just was. "You returned what you broke." I fell to one knee, my mind flooding with images. Wars, fire, broken worlds, a spiral collapsing into itself, and at the center, me, not as I am, but as I was meant to be. The core showed me a future, not one of peace, one of replacement, humanity, burned down to its roots, rebuilt, perfect, obedient, aligned. I tore myself from the vision, breath ragged, sweat freezing to my face. "No," I whispered, "this isn't healing. This is erasure." Kira stepped forward. "No, Ryder, it's mercy." She reached toward the core. The room shook. The pulse screamed, and for a moment I saw the full picture. The Alari weren't the first shepherds. They were slaves too, programmed, released, destroyed, just like we would be, unless someone broke the chain again. I looked at Brenner. He was staring at the core with tears in his eyes. "They promised peace," he said. "No more war, no more pain, just order." "No more choice," I said. Then I raised my weapon and fired. The blast hit Kira in the chest. She staggered, stunned, not from pain, from betrayal. Brenner lunged. We fought, flesh on bone, blood on ice. He was faster now, stronger, but not smarter. I drove a knife into his side, twisted, and threw him against the wall. He hit the floor with a groan, twitching. I turned to the core. It pulsed again, harder. It wanted me to kneel, to submit. I walked forward, heart pounding, skin burning. Then I placed my palm on its surface, and I refused. "No," I said. "We'll live broken. We'll live wrong. But we'll live free." The core screamed. My mind split in half. I saw worlds burn. I saw the tower collapse. I saw Veltar break. And then, silence. The red light dimmed. The pulse died. And the chamber went still. Behind me, Kira coughed, blood in her mouth. "You've damned us." "No," I said, standing over her. "I gave us back the right to damn ourselves." We left Antarctica in silence. Brenner never woke up. Kira didn't speak again. But the storm above the outpost vanished. And across the world, hollowed began to collapse. Some died. Some woke up screaming. But they were human again. And the stars, they went quiet. For now. I didn't expect a parade. I sure as hell didn't expect a firing squad either. But when we returned from Antarctica, I didn't know which one I deserved more. There was no welcome. No official response. No broadcasts, just the feeling. The kind of feeling you get when the ground stops humming. Like the earth took a deep breath and finally exhaled after holding it for too damn long. The pulse was gone. Dead. Whatever connection had tied humanity to the deeper network, the one buried beneath galaxies and evolution, was severed. I felt it. Everyone did. Like waking from a dream you didn't know you were trapped in. The world didn't celebrate. It panicked. We touched down in a neutral zone near what used to be Cape Town, one of the last operating satellite uplink towers still connected to global comms. The place was crawling with mixed forces, UN remnants, ex-private military groups, even some rogue nation flags I didn't recognize. But nobody stopped us. Not because they didn't want to, because they were too afraid. We were no longer soldiers. We were symbols. And symbols scare the ones still clinging to power. Brenner didn't make it. His body never recovered from what the core did to him. When I buried him in the ice, I didn't say a word. Didn't need to. He made his choice. So did I. Kira? She lived. But she never spoke again. Not to me. Not to anyone. She sat in silence, always staring at the sky like she was waiting for something to come out of it. Like she knew it wasn't over. She was right. The world above hadn't healed. Cities were still broken. Governments collapsed or fractured. The hollowed either died during the severance or woke up like animals dragged from fire, howling, feral, unmoored. Some committed suicide within days. Others adapted. They remembered fragments of what they'd been taught, what they were becoming. Some called it a blessing. Others called it trauma. Me? I called it a warning. Because no matter how many satellites stopped pulsing, how many symbols faded from skin, or how many voices went quiet, the tower was still in my dreams. Not always at the center, not always whole, but still there. A shape carved into the backdrop of my subconscious. Watching. Waiting. I tried to disappear again, figured it was the best option. Let the world tear itself apart or rebuild without me watching. I wasn't made to be anyone's hero. But someone had other plans. They found me in the ruins of an old gas station outside the old Kenyan border. 3 men in unmarked gear, quiet footsteps, and dead eyes. Professional. Efficient. They didn't speak. They tried to kill me. It didn't go well. I took a bullet to the ribs and another to the thigh before I gutted the last one and crawled behind the counter, bleeding into dust. Inside his pocket was a chip, encrypted. Guess who it traced back to? General Cullen, the bastard who tried to bury me after I blew up the sanctum. The man who said I made Earth a target. He was right. But now he wanted to clean house before the dust even settled. I could have run. Instead, I went straight to him. The UN bunker he operated from was in northern Norway, a heavily fortified ex-civilian science outpost, now retooled as a temporary command center. It took me 5 days and a handful of stolen ID beacons to reach it. I didn't sneak in. I walked through the front door with a rifle, a detonator, and a limp I stopped hiding months ago. They didn't expect me to still be alive. They definitely didn't expect me to look like I didn't care anymore. I found Cullen exactly where I thought he'd be, down in the strategy core, behind bulletproof glass, and a squad of guards who were more afraid of him than loyal to him. He stood when I came in, gave me that same cold smirk. "Ryder Grant," he said, "back from the dead again?" I dropped the detonator on the table. "No speeches," I said. "No politics. You sent men to kill me." "I sent men to silence a threat." "You mean the only reason this planet's still free?" He stepped closer to the glass. "No," he said. "Free would mean functional. Look around, Grant. You gave the world back its freedom, and what did it do? Collapse, cannibalize, tear itself apart. Better than being programmed livestock." "Are you sure?" he asked. "Do you know how many people died when you severed the pulse? How many entire cities blacked out? Millions gone in one breath. Do you even care?" I did. But not the way he meant. Because if the cost of freedom is chaos, so be it. That's always the price. Cullen leaned in. We had order. We had structure. We had peace under their guidance. "No," I said. "You had a leash. You were just too comfortable to feel it." He stared at me. then sighed. You're not a man rider. You're an anomaly, and anomalies get corrected. I smiled. Cold. Tired. You're right. Then I pulled the second detonator from my sleeve. Boom. The outer blast shredded the tower's comm grid. Lights dropped. Power stuttered. And in the flicker of darkness, I was gone. Didn't kill him that night. But I left him broken. And the world knew what happened. Because Kira, silent, withdrawn, ghost-like Kira, broadcasted everything. The truth. About the Alari, about the core, about the war we never saw coming. And what she left out? She let the people decide. Whether I was a savior or a heretic. Whether the gods were our keepers or our jailers, and whether they wanted them back. Weeks passed, then months, and slowly. Something new began. Not governments, not empires, but fires, all over the world. Signals from small clusters of people, scientists, engineers, outcasts, trying to rebuild. Not what we had before. Not the failed old world. Something smaller, wilder, free. The sky stayed quiet. No more pulses, no more dreams of towers. But some nights, when the wind is high and the stars flicker wrong, I still feel it. A presence, not angry, not forgiving, just watching, waiting, because they're still out there. The architects, the original builders, Veltar, and when they come again, and they will, they won't bring temples or voices in our minds. They'll bring a question. The same one the core asked me. The same one I answered in blood. Do you want peace or freedom? And when they ask, I'll be ready to answer again.